Hi, welcome to Fuji Green YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to go over the Duende IdentityServer integration with external authentication provider such as Facebook, Google, Microsoft, GitHub, and Twitter. The video content will include the following: use case for using account from social media to log in, architecture overview of external authentication providers, running an instance of Duende IdentityServer to see how external logging works, doing a code walkthrough of integration of the source code, how to register client for Facebook, Google, Microsoft, GitHub, and Twitter, and update settings in the secret.json when running IdentityServer in Visual Studio 2022. Use case. Recently, I worked on a hobby project to build Angular app to allow pickleball players to log in and do self-assessment on player skills. Microsoft provides NuGet package to enable token service IdentityServer to let users with existing accounts on social media platform to log in custom app. This way, users do not have to set up and remember another set of username and password. This helps to improve user experience. Let me show you how user can use their existing account on a social media platform to log into the custom apps. Here is a custom app Angular running on the local host right here. In the upper right corner, I have the option for the login, and it's going to redirect to the identity server. The identity server has the local login option. I can register for a new account, and then with the new username and password, I can log in. Or here on the right hand side, it have the option called external login. I have enabled 5 social media platform that user can pick and to log in. This is GitHub, Twitter, Google, Facebook, and Microsoft. So let me go ahead and click on my Facebook here. So the identity server talking to Facebook platform allow the user to log in, and then on the upper right corner here, if I go back, now I have this show that I already logged in with my account on Facebook, which is called Fuji Facebook here. And if I'm going to go ahead and do a skill assessment, this is an example where I just pick a level 4 for skill assessment. This could be an online form, it could be a survey, could be things application form, and where the user can now with an account we can save the data. So for example, right now it know that Fujimi has logged in, so now it pull up my name and the my skill evaluation for different skill within this sport pickleball. So how does it work under the hood? Let's take a look at the architecture overview. Modern application typically consists of 3 major components. You got the clients. For example, it could be an Angular, it could be a React, or it's a Blazor, or it could be an MVC application. You got the API resource. Typically is the REST API type, where it's gonna provide data to the client application. And here you got the token service, which is the security components that issue and validate the JSON web token. What we have seen earlier today is that in the demonstration is that the token service has been integrated with the external providers, the authentication provider, such as Facebook, Google, Azure, Microsoft, and GitHub, and so on. And this integration enable login using account from existing social media platform. Let's take a look at the source code relate to the integration with the external service provider. The three main source code file are app setting.json, external provider configuration.cs, and the startup helper. I'm going to go inside the Visual Studio in a minute to show the content of the source code file. Just want to point it out here that the repo with the complete source code for the token service identity server is on GitHub, and this is the URL. One can clone this repo to local and look at the source code within the Visual Studio 2022. So let's switch to Visual Studio and take a look at the source code here. After cloning the Visual Studio the repo down to the local, this is what it looked like. Open using the solution here. There are several projects inside of this. The code that relate to integration with the external provider are in the project called Token Service SCS Identity here. Within this project, the app settings is where it has the setting values, etc., like client ID, client secret, to for different provider. So let's take a look at the app settings right here. And the external provider configuration section right here, it has use GitHub provider. Default is a false. And then if this is turned true, then it need to provide the GitHub client ID, GitHub client secret, and the other provider here as well as the Twitter, and you got the Google, Facebook, and Microsoft. One can put the values inside of the app.json right here, but it's not recommended because when you put the sensitive value into this file and you check in the source code, you expose those sensitive values. Microsoft recommend to use secret.json to store this information so it gets separated out. It's not buried within the source code. But I will go into that how to update the secret.json in a little bit later. The other file, source code file, is called the external providers configuration, and this file is inside of the configuration folder within the token service STS identity project right here. This one is just a class, a simple class, like a model, a bag. You can consider it. At runtime, it will load the settings here for the provider inside of this model here, model class, and then it will be used in the startup helpers. Yeah. So the startup helpers right here is instead of specify a lot of code inside of the startup class here, these helper help to isolate those code into a different file. So in terms of loading, register the external provider, the source code is inside the startup helper here. It's starting at line 384. It's a add external providers here, and down here there'll be a section here that I documented. This is for GitHub, but you can see the pattern here is that it's called add GitHub. All of these are come from the NuGet package from provided by Microsoft. and very little line of code that need to be added here. I just have to specify the client ID and the client secret, and it's set to whatever the values is set up in the app setting.json here. And then the next one is the Twitter. So very simple, just the client ID, client secret here. Twitter a little bit different is the instead of call client ID, client secret, is called consumer key, consumer secret here. But the coding pattern is similar. Google is called client ID, client secret. So all of these name properties here are part of the NuGet package. And take a look at the Facebook. It has the add Facebook here, and client ID, client secret. And last but not least is the Microsoft. It also have the client ID and client secret in here. I'm gonna run this project here, and it should we should see a login screen. There it is. Here is the if go directly to the identity server to log in, this is what the screen look like. And earlier I did a demonstration of the Angular application. That's what the custom application can also redirect to the screen, so that after logging in, then the identity server will redirect the user back to the custom application. It's only take a few lines of code to integrate identity server with the external service provider. Simply providing two critical pieces of information, the client ID and the client secret. But where do you get those information? So let's take a look at the how to register the Facebook client. Microsoft provide instruction on how to create the app in Facebook. I have listed this instruction in my blog in the Medium site. You are welcome to take a look, go to this website and read through all of this step by step here. But let me go ahead and log into the Facebook developer console and show what the screen look like. So once you register with the developer console, now it's called the Meta for developers here. There's an option to create new app. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to show you an existing app that I have here. Under the basic, under the settings right here, it has the app ID and app secret. This is the value can be, these is called client ID in the code, and here is the client secret here. According to Microsoft documentation, while here I also need to set up something called redirect URI. So here, if you have your apps running on the local host during the development on port 44310, need to set it up this signing-Facebook. And if I have this application running out in Azure, for example, I also need to have similar setup. For Google authentication provider, we will also need to have a Google client ID, Google client secret, and also need to set up redirect URI. Let's take a look at the documentation from Microsoft on how to do that. Microsoft published online documentation called Google External Login Setup in ASP.NET Core, and it talk about set up the Google OAuth 2.0 client ID and secret. Let's go to the Google client um, developer console and take a look at that. This is my account, log into the Google developer console here. I would go to the credential here and just take a look at one of the example project here under the OAuth2 client ID. Here's an example I set up earlier. I'm going to delete it later. I just call it localhost right here. And once this is set up, there are information here that you can take and put in the app settings. Like for example, the client ID, the client secret here, and down below, this is where I set up the authorized redirect URI, which is localhost, and then the port number, and sign in Google. For Microsoft Authentication Provider, we also need to have the Microsoft Client ID, Microsoft Client Secret, and also set up the redirect URI for the local host 44310, the port number, and sign it /signing Microsoft. And this need to be done in the Azure portal. So let's take a look at the documentation for Microsoft. How to do that. Here is the online called Microsoft Account External Login Setup for ASP.NET. And it's talking about go to Microsoft Developer Portal and the Azure portal here and set it up under the app registration. What does it look like in that portal? So here is an example of app registration. I call it Duende right here. And under the overview, we see the client ID. So this is the Microsoft client ID. One can copy to the clipboard and so on. But to get the secret, this is under the certificate and secret right here. There's an option right here to say create new client secret here. It have the expire right here, 6 months and so on. Let's say I pick 24 months, click on add, and this is the secret value that can cut and paste and put into the app settings. For the redirect URI, let's go under the authentication right here, and right in the middle right here you say redirect URI, and this is the value needed for the IdentityServer. When it running localhost, it run on the port 44310 and have to have this sign. That's Microsoft. So all of these are described in the online documentation called Microsoft Account External Login Setup with ASP.NET Core. For GitHub Authentication Provider, we also need to have the GitHub Client ID and GitHub Client Secret here. In addition, need to set up the redirect URI, the URL of the IdentityServer. When during development, it's called localhost, and then the port number, and then / and signing in / GitHub. So let's take a look at the documentation for Microsoft on how to do that. So Microsoft has the instruction for Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Twitter. Those are the major social network. For the other, it's the instruction is under the other providers right here. And down here it have like LinkedIn, Instagram, Reddit, GitHub, Yahoo, so on and so on. And let's click on the instruction for GitHub right here. But instead of the instruction on Microsoft website, it's just redirect to the GitHub docs on how to do that. Let's take a look at the GitHub site right here. This is my account. I can go to the settings and then go to developer settings here, and here is the section for the OAuth apps. I got one here, that example here, that pull it up, and this is where I get the client ID and the client secret. I can delete it or I can generate a new one. For Twitter authentication provider, we also need to obtain the Twitter consumer ID, Twitter consumer secret, and set up the redirect URI signing dash Twitter here. So let's take a look at the documentation for Microsoft on how to do that. Microsoft has this online document called Twitter external sign in setup with ASP.NET Core. It's described get to the Twitter developer console and dashboard and set it up. So let me go ahead and click on that one here. And this is my account. We had a project and apps. I set up one called Mickleball right here. And uh, keep in mind here is use the different terminology. Is use call something called consumer ID and consumer secret. And that go under over here. This is the where you can pick it up, the consumer key and the secret information here. So assume that you want to set up authentication provider with all those major provider like GitHub and Twitter and Microsoft and Google and Facebook and so on. I mentioned earlier, it's not a good idea to put those settings inside of app setting.json. Certainly you can do that. It's just not a good practice here because when we put the sensitive information in here and we check in the source code and it end up on GitHub in a public repo and people see that information, they could use that. So Microsoft recommended not to do that, but where do you put it? So a better way to do that would be right mouse click on this project where the app setting at and select the menu option in here called manage user secret. Okay, so the setting in where will be put in the secret of JSON right here. When we run this project local, it will take this and then it stuff this information inside the app setting.json. And this secret.json here is never get checked into the repo. Just notice the naming convention right here. In the app setting, this is the section name called external provider configuration. And down below here is the individual setting. So in this, when you set this up, you put the section name and then the individual setting slash value here, and it's separate by colon. In my blog publication, I put this example secret.json here with some fake value. Certainly you can go there and cut and paste and put it into your local, and then after that, whatever the external provider login that you want to enable, make sure you set it to true and then supply the value accordingly. So that is it for the today video blog. This does not have all the step-by-step detail. It's just a complementary video to my publication of article on in Medium. You are if you're interested to know more of the details, please take a look at the link that I put in the description of the video. It's a link to where you can read the blog about how to integrate external providers into the Duende IdentityServer. Thank you for watching the video.